Everyone assumes that AI is cheaper than hiring a human, but it's not. Companies running AI coding agents cost $300 a day in token cost per agent. That's over $100K a year for a bot that you can't control, and exactly what people don't realize. For engineers, bot code alone can run $200 to $2,000 per month in AI usage. And on average, developers spend $200 to $600 a month across all AI tools. And the heaviest users are racking up $300K a year in compute costs, which is more expensive than what some engineers make in their salary. Now, these users are consuming way more GPUs than they're paying for in Anthropic, and their VCs are covering the cost for now. But we've seen this movie play out before with Uber, Spotify, and Amazon Prime, where they make the prices really cheap, get people to use it, while the VCs cover the gap, and then double prices once everyone is using them. Now, that's a strategic play. For 2026 alone, Anthropic expects to spend $12 billion training AI models and another $7 billion running them, so we don't expect them to be profitable until 2028. So our AI usage right now is extremely discounted. But once that subsidy ends, we're going to be paying primo prices, and you're going to realize that your AI usage isn't that much cheaper than human labor.
If you feel like ChatGPT is getting worse, you're not imagining it. We're in the middle of what researchers are calling an AI model collapse. So here's what that means and why you should care. These models were trained on decades and decades of human-generated content. So articles, research, conversations, images. And that's what made AI so great so fast, is that it was trained on the best of what we as humans created. But now something's changed. Last year, almost 75% of the content on the internet was created by AI, which means that the new AI models are being trained on the content that the old models created. To understand why this is a problem, let's look at what happens when you make a photocopy of something. The first copy is usually fine, but if you make a copy of that copy, you're gonna start to lose some of the detail. And if you do this 10 times, 20 times over again, eventually it's gonna become a blurry, unreadable mess. And that's precisely what's happening with AI. The models you're using today might already be worse than they were 6 months ago. But the question is how much worse they're going to get.
The AI jobs apocalypse is upon us, but I have a silver lining for you, some good news. So let's talk about the apocalypse first. So the apocalypse, I think, is going to arrive in stages. And the first stage we are just now entering, and that is one in which the companies are becoming more and more willing to lay people off, even though the AI can't do the work yet.
As a sweltering heatwave hits Northern Europe, everyone's looking at AI like it's a tech boom. But what if it's actually an energy takeover happening in real time? Because the story isn't ChatGPT, robots, or the latest chip. It's electricity. AI demand is growing so quickly that data centers are starting to consume power on the scale of entire countries. The UN has warned that by the end of the decade, AI infrastructure could be using as much electricity as Japan. And that's where the investment story changes. The smart money isn't just buying AI companies anymore. It's buying the infrastructure that keeps AI running. That's why firms like Blackstone are pouring tens of billions into data centers, power generation, transmission networks, and energy projects. Because the bottleneck isn't chips, it's power. I'm already seeing the effects. Europe is battling higher energy costs, Japan is struggling to control inflation, and governments everywhere are realizing that AI growth requires massive upgrades to national infrastructure. So, what does this mean? AI is no longer just a tech story, it's an energy story. And when energy becomes the bottleneck, costs rise, inflation becomes harder to control, and central banks have less room for cuts. The next big winners may not just be AI firms. They could be companies generating the electricity that powers them. Because if AI is the gold rush, energy is selling the shovels. Keep that act sharp, trade smart, and when the weather is like this, don't forget to wear some sun cream.
I stumbled across a survey done this year with 600 HR leaders by a group called Career Minds. Some really, really interesting statistics that I think you'll be curious to hear, David. So 2/3 of organizations that made AI-driven layoffs were already rehiring, and Klarna was one of those examples. Half of them started rehiring within 6 months of making the layoffs. 50% had restored up to half of the roles that were lost, and a different 30% said that the rehiring ultimately cost more than the original savings. Wow. So I think, super, super interesting statistics. I think there's a really interesting lesson for tech leaders in companies of various different sizes, as well as these big corporations, that if you are introducing AI and you're thinking about letting people go, or you have let people go, keep an eye actually on performance monitoring. That's something we've discussed at lots of our events. People don't actually implement the performance monitoring to know whether they're succeeding. But, be aware that it's not clean cut. The success stories you see, they're doing multiple things. It's not just introduction of AI. And there are definitely companies who have sort of stumbled into that space and gone, actually, we need to stop. We need to hire people back because it hasn't been as successful as we wanted it to be.
So for people who want a quick explanation as to why OpenAI is losing billions of dollars and these other AI companies don't make any money, a large amount of RAM was purchased that hasn't been produced yet to be put into GPUs that haven't been built yet, to be put in a data center that may or may not ever be built, to be powered by infrastructure that may or may not ever exist, to satisfy a demand that doesn't exist, and to ease a financial profit that is not mathematically possible. And it is all being done with money that does not exist. Make it make sense. And all these companies would rather sit here and hold hands and walk off this cliff together than admit they were dumb. It's all cope because they need this magical cost-cutting tech to be real in order for them to make any of this money back. And they're never going to. And they would all rather burn in the fires of Mount Doom than admit they were wrong. That's that sunk cost fallacy right there. That's that premium edition.
Ford rehired workers it replaced with AI because the AI did a bad job. Last week, Ford told reporters that it had to rehire 350 veteran engineers after finding that its automated quality and design systems were leading to an increase in vehicle defects. Executives at the company admitted that its robots lacked the expertise and training of its veteran human engineers. According to Forbes, this miscalculation by the company cost it billions of dollars. Ford has eliminated over 5,300 salaried positions since 2020. This isn't even the first time a company has had to rehire workers after they realized that humans could not be replaced by robots. Between 2022 and 2024, Klarna replaced 700 customer service agents with an OpenAI assistant. They plan on replacing about half of its workforce with AI. As a result, the company saw an overwhelming decrease in quality and customer satisfaction, a degree that the CEO literally said that they made a mistake. So by mid-2025, they were rehiring human customer service agents again. Bosses are realizing what we already know. You can't replace human workers with AI. Ultimately, we can't just rely on corporations suddenly deciding to rehire people. Both Klarna and Ford execs still seem very committed to AI. What we need is actual protections for workers and to actually regulate AI.
We have seen pushback on AI data centers here in Florida, and today, New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed an executive order imposing the nation's first ever moratorium on building massive AI data centers. The move, which takes effect immediately, pauses state permitting on new construction for up to a year, giving lawmakers time to consider protections for residents and the environment. Governor Hochul says the scale and speed of construction places an unprecedented strain on New York's energy grids and water resources.
New York will always welcome investment and innovation and will always stand up for our workers and our people. No one gets to build their future by asking hardworking New Yorkers to sacrifice theirs.
Governor Hochul says she will require future data centers to supply their own power or pay a premium to tap into the state's grid. Some labor groups argue the short-term moratorium will only stifle economic growth and send projects to other states.